Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, my FM 101.3, Money in the Law. This is your show about money and law, which is about finance and legal. And we've been doing it now for we are into our ninth year.
Closing in on the big decade.
Yep. In our ninth year with your host, your 9-year running host. Haven't been replaced yet, right? There hasn't been any real turnover.
I'm not aware of a petition or anything out there. That doesn't mean there isn't one. I'm just unaware of it.
Same guys, right? It's Jay Marsden, Joseph Marsden for those of for his true Christian name, but he goes by Jay, and he runs the Marsden Law Group right in downtown Holliston. And I'm John Drohan. I'm from Main Effort Financial, and we are also joined by Christian's kind of like a long-standing. I mean,
He's stuck with us the longest.
Yeah, right.
A lot of people have bailed.
There has been a little bit of Holliston cable access TV changeover.
Yep.
But Christian is he was the right fit.
Yeah, he was. Cronin the Barbarian, he went the distance with us, but once we got rid of the beer, he decided he was done.
Exactly, which is weird, right?
I know. I'm surprised there was a connection like that, but I'm a little offended, but that's fine.
Don would be sitting down here. He would actually bring some of his own beers that he'd drink, in the parking lot, and then he would come in and taste ours.
Yep.
But Christian's been here for a good part of probably the last 4 years. I think 4+, right?
He's not on the poster, but that's all right. You give some. Well, maybe we'll upgrade it.
It's funny. I looked at the poster. So for those of you who have never been to the My FM studio, the exquisite studio in downtown Milford. As you walk into the studio, we're on the third floor. As you walk in the studio, there's a series of posters, from like shows, current and shows gone by.
Well, it's radio personalities. Let's call it what it is. Yeah, it's kind of like a media wall of honor and fame,
exactly.
And then they have a list of media personalities.
It's kind of like when you go into a movie theater, right? And you have those kind of the billboards up there.
Stars on the wall.
Yeah. So one of the posters, in fact, the marquee poster, the best one, is a Money in the Law poster with yours truly and Jay.
And we haven't changed a lick. A lick.
So as I was walking in today, I was like, wow, that is one old picture of two guys. And we look, we look exactly the same. I don't know if we look exactly the same, but you can definitely tell it's a little dated picture. So we're probably due to kind of to upgrade a little bit on the photo
You can tell it's old because we both have Blackberries in our hand. We're like looking at Blackberries like we're gonna like.
I have a Palm Pilot. I'm actually with a stencil. Yeah. So I think we're due, and I think we bring in Christian. I think Christian's part of the show. He's here
We'll put him in like a hidden location. Like
now that we found out, so this is Christian's first maskless show.
Yep.
Right, because Christian's fully vaccinated. So we did last week was Jay's and my first maskless show. Now Christian joined us today, and we found out we know what he looks like now because we'd forgotten. Yeah, he said he's a good-looking guy, right?
Been that long.
Yeah.
It's been that long. Yeah. It's good stuff.
All right.
Good stuff.
So we'll put that on the calendar. Put that on the docket.
On the to-do list.
Yeah.
That's right. We'll
all right. So this is normally the time of the show where we talk about the weather. So what do you think about the weather?
Oh, it's hot. It's hot. It's
right?
hot. And I like it. I'm fine. The hotter the better. We've talked about it.
You're a Florida guy, right?
I'm not a Florida guy. I'm just a guy who appreciates the fact that this weather window that we have here. I mean, sure, okay.
You're not afraid of heat.
Not afraid of the heat.
Nope.
I'm not afraid of the heat because it's New England, right? It's going to change in 5 seconds, and then
it's not going to stay like this.
No, I mean, a couple of weeks ago we were talking on the same weekend in good old New England. I got sunburned and I had the heat on. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's how it rolls, right? So this window is pretty. It closes pretty quick. It's pretty narrow, and so I'm fine with it. I like it.
So I'm reviewing a book right now that I've read years and years ago, but I'm reviewing it again. It's the book by David McCullough called 1776.
Great book.
Right.
Yep.
So you've read it as well. So
history guy. Yep.
So one of the things that they're talking about, they talk about pretty extensively, is like kind of the conditions in 1776 for both the British and the Continental Army and kind of in Boston, and because that's where it all started right here, and. You know what? Everybody talks about all this globular warming and all that stuff. It was the same stuff that was going on back then, right?
Yeah,
it was snowing a lot. It was cold. It was really hot in the summer, right? And it was the same stuff. Pretty much.
People talk all the time who consider Florida, for example, as sort of a year-round destination for themselves, and they're thinking about making the move, and first thing people always say is, it's so hot down there in the summer, right?
Yeah.
And then you pull your iPhone out and you'll flip through it and you're like, well, let's see, in pick an area of Florida. In here in New England, it's 85 in both
Yeah.
areas, or it's 90 in both areas.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we go through our windows of sweltering hot. You know, you walk out, it's like walking into a sponge, and you say to yourself, "Oh, this is, you know, there's not that cool, fresh mountain breeze."
But
coming
like
through.
you said, they're windows.
Yes,
Right. They're
yes.
not like in Florida they're long hallways. They're like they're
That's a good
buildings
point.
of
That's a good point. Yeah,
it's like
that's right.
oh, it's hot today and it's going to be hot for the next 6 months. So
Yeah.
dig in.
But you know what? But I tell people all the time. But unlike, like for example, if you're in Florida now and you're complaining about the heat at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock when the sun goes down, right? It's a little bit more manageable. You know, the temperature drops because it
Yeah.
moves into the evening portion. When we're up here in February, when the sun goes down at the end of the day on a
At 3
beautiful
o'clock in the
February
afternoon.
day at 3 in the afternoon, it doesn't suddenly become 70 degrees,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
It becomes 7, which becomes 5, which becomes -2.
Right.
And so we don't get that. So yes, while I know that we have to suffer through
And
some
then you
things.
want it to snow instead of because if it's freezing rain, then it's going to be even worse. So,
Yep.
yeah.
So, but here we are. It's great, fantastic. I love it, and it's and
The money
this,
in the
and this
law,
is the summer for it.
The Money in Law weather report this week was brought to you by Caldwell Bank. No.
It's the money in the law weather like
Yeah, weather review. Yeah, weather commentary.
weather session. That's right. It's
Yeah,
always the same.
yeah.
The conversation is always the same. Hot's really hot.
Yeah.
Cold is really cold. Cold bad. Hot good.
Jay
There you
doesn't
go,
mind
right
the
there.
heat.
There you
Jay,
go.
yeah,
That's
Jay
right.
likes to go to Florida.
We've done it a million
Yeah,
times. We've done it a million
same-
times.
same
What are you
stuff.
talking about today? Speaking of hot weather.
So
Speaking of hot air, what are you talking about today?
this is what I want. I want to change gears a little bit. I want to
Please-
change a
please do.
little off money, little off law, and it all kind of ties back, and it all matters, right?
It does come back around.
So one
yes.
of the things I want to talk about today, and I was again as I was coming in, I'm inspired by the MyFM, the MyFM spirit. And what do we when you think about MyFM and you think about Tom, and you think about the guys here, like the whole WMRC, what have they been doing for? I mean, since we've known them, and long before that, since Tom's dad was doing it, they're a community radio
Giving
station, right?
back selfully to the community. Is that your question right
Oh
there?
my God!
Yes.
There you go. So,
yes.
so that's what I want to talk about today, and I often think about this because you are a very generous person. You're a
I
very
am.
generous person of your.
Everybody
I'm
says
not
about
with
me.
your money, but
No,
maybe of your
no.
time,
Yep.
right?
My opinion. I'm very generous with my opinion, whether you want it or not. You're going to get
but
it.
you are very generous with your what you keep in that cabinet in your office as
Yep,
well. I mean,
that's right.
there's
Yep.
there's never like, hey, there's no when Jay has a party, invite you over. There's no BYOB at the bottom. No.
We don't
Don't
operate that
insult
way.
him.
Nope, that's right.
So, but you're generous of your time, and you're generous because you are that kind of that giving spirit, which I admire. One of the great things, one of the things I admire about you. And I talk, and so I want to talk about like that. Like there's so many, especially now, kind of coming out of the COVID, coming out of like the whole pandemic, is that there's, people need other people.
Sure.
They need that. They need to. There's some people that still, like to this day, are hurting, and there are organizations that work to kind of help these people, and there's you lose track of them all, of all the kind of opportunities to kind of give back to, whether it be your community, whether it be to your school, whether it be to your church. There's all these opportunities for people to kind of, hey, I have some extra time, or if I don't have some extra time, I'm going to make some extra time. Maybe I'm going to coach like a kid's soccer team, or maybe I'm going to sponsor maybe I'm going to help organize like a fundraiser with a nonprofit or something like that, or I'm going to join a board of some of a something where I'm not going to get paid for it. I'm not going to get anything out of it.
Right, right.
I mean, so I wanted to kind of talk about that, and there's a lot of people that do it. I mean, you and I both know so many people, and you could make the same argument about town government, right? So again, although if you were a selectman in Holliston, and again, I know that the current selectmen, they probably don't want me to talk about this, but they get paid a lot of money, like a lot of money.
Yeah,
when you do the math on it, right?
coin.
Like what they get paid per hour
It's a win.
is.
You're in the black. You're totally in the black.
I mean, you're not only in the black, you're like retiring early.
Yeah.
I'm being facetious. Obviously, they get paid nothing, and so all of that is kind of like this giving back, and giving back to and I mean, Jay did it for the glory. Obviously, he did it to be on TV. He did it to hear himself talk. but that probably went away after about, I don't know, your first town meeting.
That's right. That's
or
right.
my second selectman board meeting.
Yep.
And then I'm like, wow, this isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. This isn't. I'm not feeling as much glory. So
I don't feel so beloved anymore.
You didn't walk down the street and people say, hey, great job, Jay. Hit him in the butt. Like,
yeah.
get in there. Go get him, kid. Right?
Yep, yep. Great job. High five.
So what I want to talk about today is giving back to whatever is worthy cause is worth giving back to, because as many people as there are out there that do that do donate their time, that donate their expertise, they donate their their opinions, their whatever they're good at, right? There's as many people, if not more, that don't. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm calling you out. Like and I'm not calling you out in a bad way. I'm not calling you out in a bad. I'm calling you out in like a, if you can, and some people can't. Some people have obligations. They just their work is just too much, right? Or
right.
they maybe they have things at home that they need to take care of, right? They may have some issues that they I'd love to be able to donate my time, but I got to worry about like what's at my house first, right?
Sure.
But if you don't, if you think you can make some time, then I'm challenging you. I'm saying to you, come on. Let's go. Do something.
The John Drohan Charitable Challenge.
Get involved. Get involved in some way, and it doesn't have to be a lot, right?
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a lot, because what I've found, in kind of in my experience and kind of in donating my time and kind of doing. And I'm not saying I'm like this, I'm this superhero. I've donated some time. I've been involved in some things, but what I've found is that every little bit helps. Every little bit helps, and there's always going to be those people that are like diehard, that are like, they can't, they live on it, right? They're the Jimmy Carters of the world that just, I wake up in the morning because I have to do something. I have to do some good thing.
This is baked into the fiber of their being. I
have to pursue some cause. But you know what? So for all of those people, the people that kind of that are there for a little while to help them, that's what keeps those guys going. That's what keeps them driven. And as we've I didn't make this up, but many hands make light work.
Sure. Heard that before. Yep.
I
not you. I got it.
I didn't make it up, but I've used it before.
Yeah, you've improved on it.
Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about today.
All right. So quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Money in the Law Charitable Challenge. You like that? Huh?
I love it.
There you go.
Love it. All right.
And and we'll wrap that up. And we'll give you some ideas and some thoughts.
Okay. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Man for Financial. Christian maskless and steering us through the cosmos, making us look good and skinny. Taking the down, turn the dial down.
Right. It's like looking into one of those House of Fun mirrors. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. That's right. So we were talking before the break, the John Drohan and the Jay Marsden Money in the Law Charitable Challenge, which was sourced by our extensive experience, if you will, running about local community events, not running them, but running to and from them, trying to help out and and all the experiences, the very positive experiences that we have had by being involved in some of those things. And
that's a great point, right? Because that's the thing is, what I've always, especially like with kids, what you always find out, like when kids are involved, or, especially like young adults, like teenagers. And you remember when you were that age, right? Everywhere you were, it was the place to be.
You'd do anything. Yeah.
Everywhere you were. So what are you doing? We're picking up trash on the side of the highway, whatever. And it's like, before you know it, you're with your friends, right? You're in high school, like, oh, there's a couple girls there that right? And it's like, you have to act funny.
Yeah, and hanging out with your buddies. Yeah, whatever.
And it's the place to be. So, and that's the same thing. Like with adults, like it's the same thing. Like when you get involved in something, it's going to be fun. You're going to.
Well, it was funny, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, every time somebody would sort of start this conversation to say, how do we sort of change or increase or ramp up, civic engagement, volunteerism, whatever you want to call it. And the first thing that I would tell everybody who was asking those questions about getting involved, the first thing I would tell everybody, it sounds a little counterintuitive, but I would say to them, first and foremost, if you think you want to get involved and you want to kind of get engaged with some of this stuff, absolutely do it, and put end date on it. Put an end date on it. Now, the reason I say that is not because I want to see them, be done and move on. But I think one of the biggest things that holds people back from getting involved in some type of charitable or civic engagement They're worried that it's going to turn into this open-ended
Yeah, they're going to get stuck, right?
That's right. That's right. So the first thing I say to somebody is, look, pick something that has either kind of a natural lifespan, or just tell somebody right up front, look, I'll commit 6 months to this project.
Yeah.
Or I'll commit to a specific event, right? There's a lot of events that go on around town, and you say, look, I'll help out with this event because it's going to be a start, there's going to be a midpoint, and then there's going to be an end, and I'm done. And you know, we ran countless events in our time as, you know, involved with the Holliston Business Association and some of the things we did in town, and they didn't go on forever. And there were certain events that people really wanted to be part of, and there were certain events that we had to literally run and shake the bushes for volunteers. Right. So pick an event if you're concerned about some type of open-ended commitment, or if there is an open-ended commitment, give yourself the exit plan, give yourself the off-ramp. It doesn't have to be forever.
Pick a piece of it, right?
Yep.
So I'll be in the planning stage of this. I'll be in the setup stage of this, right?
Yep.
And like you said, you know, if you give yourself 6 months, then in 6 months comes around, you see where you're at, right?
Yep.
You know,
you can always stay. You can always hang around.
You can always stay, right? You can always stay, or you can go move on to something else. I mean, and that's a great piece of advice, because if you think about it, you know, what's going to happen is, what a lot of people end up doing is, if they're so charitably inclined for their time and their expertise, or, you know, their involvement, is they'll be like, they'll do something, oh, this is fun. And then they'll get involved with something else, and they'll get involved with something else. And then sometimes you get to this point where you're kind of overextending yourself, and you can't give, you know, what you said you were going to be able to do for this one particular event, you don't end up doing, because I get too many other irons in the fire.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I mean, pick an event that maybe has a natural end date, if you will. And the other piece of it is too, is if the spirit moves you, don't overcommit yourself. Yeah. Don't overcommit yourself, because when you overcommit yourself and then you decide I can't make it anymore, you end up leaving the people behind who are committed to it. That's their one thing, for example. You know, your overcommitment makes more work for them, or makes more work for somebody later on down the road, because they thought you were all in for 6 months and that they had your time and they had your attention. And then when you decide, oh, I've overcommitted myself, I need to do something different, that makes it difficult, because they got to kind of pick up the pieces, because they made some plans, being, you know, having this many bodies running around, and now they don't have them. That makes a lot of work.
So one of the things that, you know, like I said, in my experience, what I found is that people who, you know, once, you know, when you're kind of putting something together, when the people are involved in the beginning, it's, you know, everybody's motivated, right? Everybody's like, and which is great, which is kind of how it's supposed to be. And as time moves on, you're going to find that, you know, again, for whatever reason, that, you know, there's going to be some people that can commit more time than other people can. But there's always going to be that core group. There's always going to be that core, and that's how it is with. And there are some groups out there that have a very large core group. So I use the example. So my mother, she lives in Wellfleet. She runs essentially a soup kitchen, but it's not really a soup kitchen. It's a nonprofit organization that every Tuesday during the off season, so up and way up, and, you know, when Cape Cod when it's not summertime in Cape Cod, it's a different place, as you well know. So in the off season, she'll run this every Tuesday. They make a dinner for essentially 100 people, and it started out as like 20, and it started out for like people who really needed it, or were like really financially challenged, and then it turned into almost like a social event, and now it's like a thing where, you know, people from all financial aspects, or, you know, they end up at this place, and she's got 50 volunteers, so she's got essentially like five teams of 10 that will rotate to kind of, you know, so this is your night to do the big dinner, and it's evolved into this truly, it's like a tremendous thing, because, you know, it's not a lot of heavy, you know, my mother's involved in it, and trust me, she does it because there's no place better for her to be. You know, she's there. It's fun. She's the center of attention. She gets to tell a joke, and I mean, and good for her, right? And you know, she lives by herself, so it's like that's her social engagement.
She social network.
She's got a bunch of buddies. She gets to be in charge of stuff. But for the other people, they, you know, if it's my turn, right? And if it's my group's turn, they put on a show, and you know, you cook for 100 people. I mean, I've cooked for 15 people. It's a workout, right? You cook for 100. So, a lot of these organizations, some of them will have these kind of big collective, like, committed groups, and some of them they won't have 50 people. They'll have 5 people, right? So, you know, in anything that you want to get involved in, you know, if you're that kind of person, and you're going to be, even if you're just going to commit for a period of time, I always kind of encourage you, if you're going to commit. Like get involved, jump in with both feet, and it's going to take time. It's going to take some of your time, and
Oh, and it's going to be awkward as all get out day one, right? You're going to show up and feel like you get 10 thumbs and you don't know what to do and you don't know what to pick up and you don't know where to stand.
But that's going to change quick.
Oh,
right?
it will change very quick. And that's why when you go into it, be very open and say, look, this is my first time volunteering for something like this. I really don't even know what to do, so I am ready to take direction as long as somebody points me and tells me what you need to do. And then somebody will say to you, oh, you know what? Why don't you go help so-and-so set up tables?
Yeah.
Why don't you go help put out, and you don't have to be, if you don't have the mojo to move some tables, well, you're going to move some tablecloths, or you're going to move some centerpieces, or you're going to move some chairs. I mean, we've set up and taken down 100 of these events, right? So they'll tell you what to do, and it'll be in your bandwidth. Don't worry.
Yeah, and so also dependent upon the organization, some of them are really organized. Some have been around for a while. Like I remember I was a part of the Lions Club for a while. I joined I got recruited.
Oh, that's how it works.
And
much like a lot of
well, it's a lot of no, it's not. I know what you were going to say. I know what you're going to say. And the Lions.
I love all of them. By
yeah,
the way.
the Lions are. But these are guys that and guys and girls that are there. You want to talk about a base, a commitment base?
Their motto, we serve.
Yeah,
they do.
And particularly, and I know the Holliston Lions because I've seen them in action. I was a part of them for a short time. These guys, I mean, you're talking like 70 to 80 active members. Like, what do you need me to do, right? And I can remember the first I went to one of I think it was like the pancake breakfast, and I'm volunteering. I'm like, yeah, I want to get involved. I want to be, which is kind of what ended up why the Community Action Fund actually happened, because I'm standing there in the Lions and I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to give some time. I want to be one of those guys that commits. I want to be. I'm jumping in with both feet, and they're like, yeah, well, I'm like, so I know my way around the kitchen. I can cut some stuff up. Like, oh no. You can't go in the kitchen.
Yeah.
No. Those guys have been doing it for 20 years. Like, they know exactly. There's no one's allowed in the kitchen.
Well, you know what? You bring up a great point, right? The point is, by the way, if you're new to this, there's some dynamic. There's some people dynamic, right?
Just like any new guy that comes in, right? You gotta break the ice. You gotta melt a little bit.
That's right. And you may have a ton of great ideas. My
keep it to
suggestion,
yourself.
Exactly. Write them down. Write them down, and keep them on the side, right? Until you kind of get in and get settled and make sure the jacket fits and all that stuff. Because there's nothing, being part of many of these groups, there's nothing what you just mentioned, there's nothing that committed long-term volunteers to a particular group love more than anything than somebody who shows up who they've never seen before ever in their entire life. Starts telling everybody that there's a better way to do things. I just can tell you right now. Yep.
And I imagine that in town government, it's not much different, right? So when you first entered the select board, right? Did you come in and say, okay, there's going to be some changes around here, people.
New sheriff in town. No,
that's right. I understand that. What's my title? Clerk?
Yep.
Fine, whatever.
I don't know what that means, but I know what
it's what the clerk thinks.
That's right. No, I was pretty good at just sitting around watching. And by the way, and I had monitored, like I had gone to a ton of meetings ahead of time, so I kind of knew a little bit of how the dance card worked. But if you're brand spanking new to some particular organization, and by the way, the best thing you can do is talk to somebody who might be in some type of organization already and say, hey, can I tag along some night? I'm thinking about donating some time. I don't know how much I have, and I'm looking for a fit. I mean, it's going to be a fit, right? It's going to be something that you're intrigued by. And you just got to remember, you're walking into something that is it can be very, very off-putting because you are the new person. I mean, and so you're just it's just going to feel awkward.
I didn't have the patience when in my Lions, and I was brought in by yours and my dear friend John Cronin, right?
Sure. Yes.
Current selectman in Holliston. John Cronin, he's like, hey, you know what? You're going to love these guys, and I knew a good amount of guys. I'm like, yeah, I like those guys.
He can sell snow to the Eskimos, right? Yeah. Absolutely, great idea.
But at my first event, and when they told me, why don't you go unfold and fold those napkins, I'm like, I feel like that I could probably do something.
I'm not sure my potential contributions are being appreciated, right? And then they're taking a measure of you to say, like, first of all, let's see if he sticks around, and second of all, then we'll give him a job. And
I'll tell you what though, were it not for the Lions, then the Holliston Business Association, and then later on the Holliston Community Action Fund, that wouldn't happen, because I learned a lot from those guys.
Yes.
I learned how. First of all, how committed and organized they were.
Yep.
And so I'm like, wow, that's a great organization. And the other thing, and you brought it up, like their motto is "We serve," right? So that's the other that's the other kind of thing that carries the day with all of these is, everybody does things for different reasons, right? Everybody, like I said, we joked around like how you want to be in the selectmen because you wanted to, everybody to kiss your butt,
Yeah.
which they still do.
Oh, yeah,
right?
they
Which
do.
is it's weird. Like whenever I'm around, like, hey, aren't you Jay Marsden's friend? I'm like, So, but everybody kind of has, they do things for, for whatever reason they do it for.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, my advice to you, my advice to everybody, anybody who joins this thing is like do this for the cause. Like do this for the, and I trust me, if you're committed to the cause, if you're committed to, to raise money for people who need, who are less fortunate than you, and you're committed to that, then guess what? You're going to feel good about it. You're going to get some payback in some way, shape, or form that maybe you anticipated, or maybe you didn't even anticipate. Or when and I can remember when we first started, when the Community Action Fund first started, and we were just getting going, and we were started to give out the grants. You're like, we had imagined this is what it's going to be like, right. But then once you start hearing the stories, and again, it was all confidential, so we didn't know who it was,
right.
But you kind of hear the stories from Youth and Family Service, like this person, you don't understand what it, you gave them $300 and it changed.
It game changer.
Yeah, it changed everything, right?
Yeah.
And for us to give $300, it was like, wow, that was an easy. It was easy. We wrote a check, and here you go.
Yeah,
and
you had done the fundraising. You had the resources to do it. Yeah.
So the whole idea of like, and that's what I really got out of my Lions experience is that these guys are just in it for. I mean, they were in it to hang out and be buddies too. There was like, they would go to the dinners and everybody had a couple beers, but they were in it like, hey, we're doing this for the cause. We're doing this for the cause,
that's right.
And collectively, they seemed all kind of committed for that. They were committed to that. So that was one of the things. I'm like, hey, we're not in. People aren't in this to kind of promote themselves. To network, to make. I joined the Lions, and now I met a couple people. Now I got some business out of it or something like that.
Yeah, nobody was in it for that reason. I know the times that I spent with the Lions group. Those guys, great guys, committed, just like you mentioned. There's a social component, obviously, to the work that they're doing, and there's a social component to being together and having a common sense of purpose, if you will, or a common sense of give back. And that's something to think about. If you're intrigued by the idea of getting more charitably involved, or getting more involved in the community, you can go to something like the Lions or the Rotary or the Elks and some of these social organizations, some of these service organizations. They're a little bit more structured, right? They've got a real, there's a whole org chart for that, and there's maybe a little bit more of a commitment in terms of what your expectations are going to be, and there might be more of a time commitment and above and beyond, for example, the different events that they run. There's meetings and things like that. Whether you go to them or not, it's a different animal.
There's retreats you have to go on. There's an initiation period.
Right, but those are big. That's right, hazing, all that stuff. But those
Controlled
are big.
Hazing,
those are big groups, and they have a lot going on, and so that may be more structure than you want. So you might want to look at something that's a little bit smaller, that's a little bit less of a sort of a national or an international organization. Because I remember talking at some of those meetings, they have people in from out of town, and it was Tom and Mary from Lions London, had flown in on vacation, figured they'd drop in on the local Holliston Lions chapter and have dinner as a special guest. I mean, these are big organizations that have a real international footprint, and so that may be more structure and that may be more committed than you want to be. So you might want to look, start small, right? Walk before you run. And
well, you could say that about any charitable organization, right? Like, I mean, how many people volunteer for like the American Heart Association, American Cancer, and so like you said, these are international, conglomerate, giant corporations that are just nonprofits. So right, there may be you may feel like your skill set or what you're looking for may be something like a little bit more local, right?
Yep, that's right.
And again,
great way to say it. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
There's this radio station that's around here. I mean, they're closed here. Oh yeah, that's right. That's my FM 101.3 that are, they're the definition of local. All right, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to keep talking about this because this is really interesting. I know you're thinking about, where do I, what do I do? Like, how do I get involved?
Where should I go right now?
What can I get involved with? And we'll give you some ideas when we come back.
And we're back. My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main for Financial, Christian behind the camera. keeping us handsome and
Christian, you got what's up with that haircut? Like is that like the standard Christian
how,
hair?
first of all, how dare
I'm just
you
saying.
comment on
I'm just
anybody's
saying if he's gonna.
hair.
I'm saying
I
that's
think-
your normal length, right? That's the bidet. That's kind of the bidet standard.
I think you should probably
Yeah.
move away from that conversation.
I mean, what are you talking about? I can talk about hair all day. I've had both kinds,
Yeah,
right?
yes, you have. Yeah,
I've
yes,
had
you
both
have. Yep,
kinds, right?
Yep, both.
I've
frightening.
actually, I will say this. Our friend Irfan Rahim told
Yes.
me, and I'll say this on camera. He said that's the best haircut you ever had.
Which one?
The last one. The
bun?
The one. No. The one that I had after post bun.
Oh, good Lord. Oh,
He said, "Wow, that's the best haircut." I was like, "Thanks. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me."
I think it probably is nice.
As far as
Yeah. He hands them out grudgingly.
Oh,
That's right.
yeah.
You
Oh, it
gotta
hurt.
work. You gotta
It hurt.
work hard. You gotta work hard to get one from
I
him.
felt like he was
That's
in a
right.
chicken wing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He doesn't give those out. Doesn't toss
Irfan
those
Rahim.
around.
But one of the great. Speaking of volunteers, one of the
Great
things.
medical minds of our generation.
Right, exactly, and also he'll go down in history as one of the greatest.
Bocce players.
No.
Cornhole.
HISA.
Oh, okay.
Holliston Youth Soccer Organization or Association. Medical staff of all time. So when I used to coach HISA, Irfan's daughter, our kids are the same age. Irfan was often my assistant coach. And it was like several teams. And of course, I have a pediatrician on staff,
Yeah,
right?
Sure, yeah.
And
Come
he
play with
was
us. Yep.
he was notorious for anytime there was some potential injury, Irfan seemed to evaluate it at about 15 to 20 feet away. And I'm like, aren't you a doctor? Don't you need to get him? He's like, no, that's I'm just checking it out. Yeah,
That's
I'm
a
good.
twist angle.
That's good. Yeah, why don't you put some ice on that and take a break?
Ice that up. Ice that up. Ice that up. Yep.
I love it. I like how he did
Ice
it.
up.
I like
Yep.
how he did it. Yeah.
All business. All
It was
business.
all,
Told you.
it was all
Yep.
business. Get back in there. You're
Yep,
fine.
that's right. That's right. Put some dirt
You're
on
fine.
it.
You
You're
don't have a
good.
concussion. No,
Yep,
you don't have a
you're
concussion.
good.
You're just dizzy.
Yeah, no, over there. You're running the wrong direction. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah,
Yep, that's right. Wrong side. Wrong side of the field.
I'm just kidding. Irfan Rahim was some wonderful times, Coach, with Coach Irfan.
Good man.
Yeah.
It's a good man. So talking charity, talking about give back, talking about if you're charitably inclined, what to think about. If you're donating your time, we talked about finding something local and small if that's your forte. If you're kind of just putting your toe in the pool. If you're looking to really jump in guns blazing, then you want to look at maybe some of the service organizations that are out there. And you can also look at making sure that you've got just to start, to give yourself sort of a finite window of time for how long you're going to do this, because a lot of these organizations, it's great to get in, they want your help and they want you to join, but the stickiness factor of who kind of hangs around becomes a slightly different animal, and so you don't want to overcommit, right? That's one of the challenges.
Yeah, so and that's kind of the easy stuff, right? Like, so there's these social organizations, there's these nonprofits that that are causes, and you and I, like I said, we've been involved with several of them over the years. So that's kind of if you want to get involved and help raise money for people who or raise money for a certain cause, like raise money for to rebuild the park or to to build a student center, things like that. Those are kind of those are easy to do. One of the things we talked about, and then of course we just mentioned coaching, right? So like getting involved with like youths, the youths,
youth sports,
the youths of, and there's a lot of different youth organizations that are out there, that could be in your town. The schools, the schools are oftentimes looking for volunteers, and again, these are all, these are things that if you're so inclined and you want to, give back to your community via like improving the, one of the things that a lot of times they'll do like a professional day. So if you so let's say you're a hedge fund manager, right? And you want to come in and tell kids.
Let's say you're a lawyer
right?
and a radio personality.
Let's say you are an accomplished attorney, right? And and you want to and kids. I mean, if they want to, you're going to tell them, hey, listen, kids, you have your whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge for this, right?
It's that exciting.
It's that exciting. But those are and that's not a 6-month window. That's a 1 day or that's a 2-day thing, right? So all of those things make a difference. Earlier in the show, we were talking about, and this is, it's good to have you here, just because you, as being a selectman for 9+ years, you understand town government as much as anybody. But as time goes on, as I'm, as I get more and more exposed to it, I always kind of, when I first came in, I was like, oh, the people who do town government, they're just, they're doing it because they want to, because they like that stuff, right? Sure. They like politics, and they, that's their thing. Yep. And then kind of as you learn more, and you say, well, they're doing it because they feel like they care about the town, right?
Yeah, you care about your community.
Yeah,
Sure.
they care, and they feel like, oh, I can make a difference. I feel like my expertise or my my commitment or my passion towards something can make a difference. And here you go, you find out that, like, these people, and again, they may be, everybody comes from different backgrounds, but they care. And
Yeah.
they and that is and it's one of those things where, to become a selectman, for instance, in Holliston, you have to be elected, right? You have to. There's an election
You gotta
process.
run the gauntlet, sure.
Yeah, you have to kind of win the hearts and minds of enough people to get you to vote for you, to get you to go in. So there's that aspect of it, and then so there's always kind of that political balance, right? And politics is in very much the same way, because, as I was saying before, these guys don't get paid. They get paid what, like $8 a day or something, or $8 a meeting, or it's ridiculous, right? So they're people are doing this. So if you want to, my point is, if you want to get involved with town government, you want to get involved with your town, there are numerous ways. You have to run for selectman.
Well, no, that you bring up a
bunch
great
of different
point.
things, right?
Yeah, you can go to your town website, wherever the website is, whatever town you're in, and you can look it up, and they'll have boards, and they'll have committees, and they'll have all this information. They'll have everything that you need in terms of looking at, what are you involved in? Like, what are you passionate about, or what do you think you want to be involved in? Do you want to be involved? Are you passionate about recycling? Your town might have a recycling committee. If you're passionate about conservation, you're passionate about the history of your town, there's going to be a historical commission. There's going to be a conservation commission, and some of these boards and committees require being elected to them to that particular board or committee. Some of them, if there's a vacancy on the board, some of them just require an appointment from usually a board of selectmen or a town council or something like that to fill a vacancy on a board. But to John's point, the beauty of some of this municipal work, if that's the direction where your interest takes you, is you can go to meetings and you can sit as a very passive observer and get a real sense of what's the board involved in, what would your time commitment look like, what types of issues might you need to tackle, and you can sort of really kind of monitor from the outside what's going on. And you can potentially, you can always grab a member of the board or the committee afterwards and say, hey, I'm really interested in your committee. I'm thinking about doing something to get involved. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any suggestions? The senior center might have a committee that helps steer some policy and guidelines at your senior center. And then there's a lot of different things that you can find yourself involved in. And it's sometimes just as easily as raising your hand and saying, I want to be involved.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just going to the meetings, and then sometimes just being a passive observer to see what goes on. That can kind of draw you in a little bit. And so you don't necessarily have to jump right in. Sometimes you can kind of ride herd on some of this a little bit to see if that's something that you want to do. And if it is, then fine. Then raise your hand and then step up.
And I'll go as far to say, so even if you do start going to the meetings,
sure, and
you start getting involved, and you start, or even just paying attention, right? Because so many people don't, right? So, and for whatever the reasons. But if you start, if there's, and you probably saw this, there were people, you probably saw a lot of the same faces that came to the select board meetings,
yes,
right?
Yep.
And so maybe they're not wired to, go try and get elected to be on the select board, or maybe they don't have the expertise or the confidence or whatever to be part of a committee, or they're not built that way. But you know what? If you go to these meetings and you ask questions and you raise points, or you talk about things or you bring up things that maybe other people haven't thought about, or even if you just listen and you're attentive and you care, that's another form. That's a form of kind of giving back, right?
It's a form of, that's right. You're contributing your time. You're contributing your thought. Certainly, you're always welcome to give some feedback at some of these things. You're right. That's part of being involved.
And one of the examples is, and this is kind of an extreme example, is kind of the big. Everybody knows about the big thing that's happening in the 555 Hopping Brook, right?
Sure.
So this is a big controversial thing that's going on in the town of Holliston and also in Medway, where there's the potential of an enormous building, enormous industrial building,
sizable development, sure, yeah,
that's going to be built in Holliston, and you have a collection of people, like there's a good number of people that are that have strong opinions on it, but there's a core collection of people that have come together and really, done a lot of homework, done a lot of extensive work to try and bring to light like all of the ramifications of what could happen if this were to go in. And then you can also you look at the way that whole thing is set up, and that it's all going to kind of come down to the planning board. So the planning board, these are town officials that they're appointed, right? The planning boards.
Well, they run. They run, or they're appointed depending if the seats are vacant, if you will. Yep.
But these are volunteers. These are
town volunteers.
These are town volunteers that are
passionate about their community.
They want. Yep. They say I want to. And now they're looking at a very significant. Something that has a lot of the town's opinions, and a lot of the town is it has very strong opinion one way or the other as to which way that they would like them to vote. So, there comes, it's one thing if you're voting on whether or not we should be able to have 6-inch signs versus 8-inch signs on the buildings versus whether we have something that could affect, the whole livelihood or the whole, the town and neighboring towns as well. So, this is, if you get involved in, by being involved, and again, being involved, whether it be running yourself or being involved or being a person who pays attention and who gives their opinion in town government, that's a commitment. That's a commitment, and that's something that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. That's that's not just volunteering at like the soup kitchen. This is this is another form of people giving back to their community, because most people don't. Most people, they're not involved. They're just kind of let things happen.
Well, and the other point is, if you go to some of these meetings and you get yourself involved in some of these areas, you will, just being in and around the buzz, and to John's point, of the people who are really very involved and have their ear to the ground on what's going on in town, you'll find other opportunities that you might say to yourself, geez, I jumped into this committee, or I was interested in this committee, but it's not sure it's the right fit for me. And then I heard about this other thing going on over there. And, not to John's point, not necessarily all these committees are certainly these national groups. Some of them are very small, some of them are very grassroots. And so your involvement there could be much more impactful if that's what you're looking for. And you wouldn't necessarily find out about them unless you are out there getting involved in some of these other groups, and then there's some kind of cross-contamination of conversations that gets you to find out that, oh my God, I didn't realize we had a recycling group in town. I didn't realize we had a sustainable, growth committee in town. We did economic development committee. You'll find out about these things by going to some of these events, because these people will cross paths from time to time, and that's where you're gonna hear about who's out there, who's interested, who's engaged, and who you might want to work with.
So that's another great way to get involved. So we said there's and another thing, a lot of people are involved with like their churches, right? So the churches, you look at the different, and I'll use Holliston as an example. The several churches in town. People are involved in their religious community. I mean, that's another great way to kind of get involved, because oftentimes the churches, they expand kind of outside of their real estate, outside of their domain, and they make a difference. They make a difference, whether it be on a national level or an international level. I know that for example, St. Mary's, and I think you were involved in this, where you would go on the mission trips and go and build housing and do all kinds of these wonderful things as part that the church sponsored and sent people down.
But to your point, and then within that organization in and of itself, there's multiple levels to give back. So, for example, if you couldn't go on the mission trip because your schedule didn't work out that way, you didn't have the time at work, any number of reasons, there's a lot of planning that went into just the actual putting together of the mission trip. And there were tons of people that coordinated or that contributed towards making that trip happen that didn't go on the trip, right?
Sure.
They just said, for any number of reasons, I can't go. But I'm involved in putting the whole thing together and the logistics in this way. So for you who are going, to make things easier for you, those folks proved to be invaluable to those of us who went on that trip. And they said, look, this is where I stop right here. I'm not getting on that bus. I'm going to send you guys off. I did everything I could to make sure it works out. If you have any problems, call me from down there.
I'm not getting on
that bus. No way. And then that's what you're going to do. You're going to jump on and again, there's no end to the ways that you can sort of give back or contribute if that's truly what you want to do.
So at the end of the day, why are you doing it, right? Why am I giving my time to something else that I'm not going to get any benefit? I'm not going to get any immediate financial reward or anything. What am I doing? and for me and for for most of the other volunteers that I've worked with, they're doing it because in some way, shape, or form, I'm going to make a difference in somebody else's life. I'm going to make a difference, whether it's one person, whether it's 10 people, whether it's 1,000 people. My tiny contribution, it will directly or indirectly somehow affect somebody to make their life better or make their livelihood better than it is right now. And you could say that about any of the examples that we gave, right? So if you volunteer as a baseball coach and let's say you played baseball in college and you know the game, and you're going to coach baseball or softball, and you're like, you know what, I know this game. And more than I know the game, I know how to coach kids. I know how to teach. I can teach kids the right way to catch a ground ball. I can teach the kids the right way to swing a bat. And at the same time, I can also teach kids how to, be good teammates. How to play to win, but also be good competitors and to not put down the other team and have good spirited competition. But at the same time, to do it for fun and to do it to support one another and being part of a team and also to set an example as an adult. This is how adults should carry themselves or conduct themselves when things don't go their way, right? So all of those things, that makes a difference. That makes a difference in the kids. That could make a difference in the kids of the team that you're playing against. That all of that stuff. So even something like that, you're making a difference in other people's lives. I mean, you've coached, I've coached. How many times have you you said? And granted, I like coaching because I was coaching my kids and I liked it, right? And I liked the game and I liked the sport. I had a good seat, when I coached, right? Yeah. I always kept, I didn't have to kind of wait. I could say when the practices were, which was
well, but you're kind of going to be there anyway, right? I mean, you're going to watch your kid to practice, and you say to yourself, if I can give back and if I can help improve the experience for other people, then why don't I go ahead and do that? There's nothing holding me back from doing it. I have the opportunity to do it, and if you don't want to do it, I get it. I understand. There's a lot of folks that don't want to do it for any number of reasons. I, like you, was always happy to say, look, you know what? If you need somebody to jump in and help out, I'll help out. And by the way, you don't have to be the coach. You can be the assistant coach, right? You can always say, look, I don't know the game as well as John does. Maybe I'll just take a back seat, let him run but I can help out and do my thing. I mean, just helping somebody else who's helping takes the burden off them and makes it easier, and the whole many hands thing, and that works out really well. But, here's the other thing, too, that I think you want to keep in mind. We talked about doing this and giving back and reaching out and your contributions. You could tell me if I'm wrong. I would be shocked if you told me you thought I was wrong.
Wrong.
You absolutely get something out of this, right?
Of course.
And again, it's not about that. You lead first with how to give. You become the go-giver, right? You give your time away. You try to improve things. You try to help out. You try to contribute. You will make you'll make a real, on your own sort of psyche and your own sense of purpose, if you will. You'll really get something out of it. You will feel good at the end of the day for when you reflect on the contribution that you make. And the other thing is, you're going to make friends, right? You're going to make relationships, hopefully good ones, but you're going to make positive relationships with people who become your friends, who become part of your social fabric, right? And as we all get older, you hear time and time again, you read story after story that the older we all get, human nature, it tends to become a little bit insular. It takes a little bit more work to kind of make friends and influence some people. This is a natural social offshoot for you to, expand your mind and expand your social fabric, and then give back to a community and improve the lives of people around you. You win on so many different levels.
You're going to get something out of it, and there's going to be inconvenience. There's going to be things that it's going to be
work.
Because it's another thing that's added to your plate, right? But there's going to be something that happens. There's going to be some event. There's going to be in coaching, there's going to be some kid that's going to coach, that was some kid scores a goal that that never scored a goal before, right? And you're going to see the look on that kid's face, and you're like, you can't put a number on that. Even if I landed a big deal at the firm, and the boss called me in and said, pat me on the back, is that doesn't compare to that kid, right? That doesn't compare to that kid who's like, Coach, thank you so much for teaching me that, or that doesn't compare for the selectman who let's say somebody who's vehemently arguing with you or disagreeing with you on a certain point, but then comes up and says, you know what? the fact that you're standing by this, and the fact that you voted, I disagree with you, but I respect you. You walk away from that and you're like, wow, like
well,
that.
you'll see changes in your community, and then you'll say to yourself, I did that, right? I was part of that. And some of these changes are long-lasting changes that have, in some respects, an intergenerational impact on different people. You mentioned being part of, groups that renovate, park areas and things like that. I mean, you're taking an area that your kids might have grown up in, and that you brought your kids to, and they played in, and then they moved on to another. They kind of age out of the system, and then you're leaving it behind, right?
Yeah.
You're paying it forward. You're doing it because somebody else did it for you. And so somebody had an idea, and you're going to get involved, and you are. At some point, you get to drive around, and you're going to have a story.
Yep.
A story. Say, look at what we cleaned up this area over here. We helped put this park in place over
Right.
here, and all these kids play at the park, and we improved this aspect of whatever organization I was part of. We did this. Or if you're part of the church, you're going to say, look, we did work at the church. Whether it's cleanup, whether it's mission trips where you help kids and you change the course of their lives. I mean, you're going to really, really get something out of this. And that's not how you kind of go into it. You always go into it to say, well, I'm going to give back. That's what I want to do. But just by its natural outshoot, it's going to come back to you, and you're going to say, wow, I didn't expect to feel that good about it.
Yeah. So if you have the opportunity, if the opportunity's there, don't miss it. Don't walk by it. Don't pass it up. Don't pass it, because you won't regret it. Like you truly won't regret it.
And if you're flirting with the idea again, go back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. Just take a finite look at something and say, you know what? I think I want to get involved in this for 6 months.
Yeah.
I just want to give back, or I want to help out with this event. That's the easiest thing, right?
Yeah.
I want to help out at the event. When I was on the Board of Selectmen, we went to countless events, right? As an elected official, there was no end to them. And the commitment of the people who put these events together, we raised money for the food pantry through the Super Bowl, and all the different events that we went to, the Memorial Day events, the Veterans Day events, the people's commitment to sort of civic engagement and civic pride, it was second to none. It would bring a tear to your eye. It was heartwarming, and it was very, very motivating to see how many people behind the scenes do things that make your community or your town, the place that you chose a reason to live in this community and raise your family here. And if there's something that you're thinking about doing because you think it could make it a better experience for you or a better experience for your family, do not be afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Jump in with both feet. And by the way, and I'll throw this out there, for anybody who's even considering it, if you have any questions about that everything we've talked about today, feel free to give me a call. Happy to talk you through it. Feel free to give John a call. Call him first because he's not as busy as me. But call.
Right.
But we're happy to kind of talk you through those
Call
issues.
during my
and
siesta time.
If you're concerned about it and you have some reservations and you want to kind of, you need somebody to coach you up a little bit and tell you why it's going to be a great reason to do whatever you're going to do.
We'll sell this to you. Yeah,
Please give us a call.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things, right? Don't call. I mean, if you think you probably don't want to do this, don't call.
No, because we'll talk you right into it.
Yeah, you will. We'll not only it's like going shopping for a dog. If you're like, I'm not going to get a dog, but I'm just going to go walk in. I'm going to go check it out. Right? Yeah. Good luck.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
It will do you a world of good. You'll get a ton out of it. You'll give back to your community. You'll make your life and you'll make people's lives around you better. And don't even hesitate. If you're thinking about it, take the John Drohan Charitable Challenge.
Go find something to do.
That's how I met this guy. That's how I met this guy right here. That's how I met this guy. I love him. Take the challenge. Take the challenge.
Kiss all the time.
Take the challenge.
All right. We'll see everybody next week. That's it, right? Money in the
That's it.
law.
We're out.
I mean,
We're
I'm
out.
feeling good. Let's go get some stuff done. All
Giddy
right.
up.
We'll
Go
see
get it,
everybody next week.
All right. Take care.